Hey, what's going on, sports cars fans? Ray from Philly here, and tonight I'm doing a very special video. It's a discussion panel for the 2024 BBWAA Baseball Hall of Fame ballot, which will be announced next Tuesday, January 23rd. And I'm going to bring on 3 other YouTubers with me now. Let's bring them in right now as we speak. We have Mike, Baseball Collector, Chris from Missouri, and Chris, Hall of Fame Pullers. Which welcome, guys.
Good to see you. Thanks for having us.
Ray, you misdescribed us. We are an illustrious panel.
The illustrious panel
of experts on the Baseball Hall of Fame.
All knowing.
Absolutely.
And I've been waiting for weeks to get on here. So
well, if a lot of you don't know, this is like my and Mike's favorite time of the year. This is like Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, Thanksgiving rolled into one. Every year, we always text each other in the morning and say, Happy Hall of Fame Day. We're Hall of Fame geeks. So we love it. And this is, it's just going to be a cool, honest discussion panel of we're going to do our ballots, who we would vote for. And at the end, we're going to predict who we actually think is going to get in. But before we do that, I want to show the tracker. If you haven't noticed or ever found this guy named Ryan, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right, Thibodeau or whatever. Let's see if I could bring that ballot in here.
Not
nope,
Mr.
That's the wrong one. Okay. So the ballot right here, real quick, I'm just going to go over the names. We're not going to discuss each players. We'll do that when we go over our ballots. Bobby Abreu is on here, 5th year. Jose Joey Bats, Carlos Beltran, Adrian Beltre, Mark Burley, Bartolo Colon, Adrian Gonzalez, Todd Helton, Matt Holliday, Torrey Hunter, Andrew Jones, Victor Martinez, Joe Mauer, Andy Pettit, Brandon Phillips, Manny Ramirez, Jose Reyes, A-Rod, Francisco Rodriguez, Jimmy Rollins, Gary Sheffield, James Shields, Chase Utley, Omar Vizquel, Billy Wagner, and David Wright. And the top 4 vote getters right now, which they have to have 75%, is Adrian Beltre at 98.9, Todd Helton at 83.1, Joe Mauer 83.3, and Billy Wagner at 79.7. So this now brings us to, we're going to go around the table. We're going to start with Mike, Baseball Collector. Mike, who is your picks for the Baseball Hall of Fame this year?
Well, I only used 8 votes actually this year of my allotted 10. The idea to me that people think the Baseball Hall of Fame is watered down is, to me, an incredibly weak argument. In spite of Harold Baines being in the Hall of Fame, it's still the hardest Hall of Fame to get in out of the 4 major sports. It's an extremely exclusive club, and to me, there's only one like slam dunk on this year's ballot, and it's my first guy, and that's Adrian Beltre.
Adrian Beltre, 1997 Bowman Chrome is his rookie card. And these are the cards, guys, that would be represented in the post-war Rookie Hall of Fame. So, yeah, go ahead, Mike. That was your first pick.
No, easy choice, like slam dunk. I think he's going to get 95+% of the vote. We'll talk about that later. But yes, Beltre's on my ballot. Next up is Beltran, Carlos. Who you show me who's on my ballot, and I'll tell you.
All right. You got Carlos Beltran,
I
1995 Topps Traded rookie.
I think the trash can thing is stupid. I mean, I think it's dumb to hold that against him. I think that's ridiculous. Beltran had an amazing body of work in his career, and was even a Texas Ranger for a brief period of time. Was he not, Chris?
In 2016,
He was.
for one pennant run.
Who was next on my list? Todd Helton is a guy that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. I hate that the Coors Field thing is held against him. He can't help where he was drafted, and that's where he played. He did the best he could with the tools he had, and he was still a really good hitter. Not great away from Coors. If you look at the splits, it's not wonderful, but he still put together a hell of a career, and I like his rookie card because he's holding my bat from when I was a kid. Next up for me is Gary Sheffield. Why not? He's there. Or Mauer.
Okay. No, we'll do Sheffield.
Sheffield, absolutely. I'm a PED let him in kind of guy. So Sheffield hits all the things for me. 500 home runs, absolute beast at the plate. Ton, RBIs. What did he have in RBIs? I can't read that.
1676.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
His WAR's a little low, but he kind of ticks all the other boxes for me. Joe Mauer, for me, 2,000 plus hits. I wish he would have played longer at catcher. I think that would have helped his case. But 3 batting titles as a catcher, insane. MVP, 99, I guess. Same year as Pudge. No, wait, that's not possible. Was it 90? What year did he win MVP? I don't know. Couldn't have been 99. His rookie card's 2002. One MVP, just great. I think he deserves to be in for what he did. He was a unique player. Billy Wagner gets a vote for me. I've never understood the closer hating on closers. I mean, Wagner was lights out, man, when he came in the game, and I hated it because he played for the Astros, but he was lights out and just threw gas and was really, really good. I feel the same way about a guy like Craig Kimbrell, who, once he retires, and I feel like he's a similar type player.
Yeah.
Just dominating. It's Billy Wagner. Who else is on there for me? A-Rod. 100% for me, A-Rod. Look at those numbers. Almost 700 home runs, 3 MVPs, 117 WAR. I mean, give me a break.
Batting title.
Take away 20% of his stats, he's still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
So, which is kind of what they say, the juice adds to somebody's statistics. Manny Ramirez, speaking of guys getting busted for steroids, Man Ram, but God, he was just such a beast. Time with the Dodgers, especially, and the Indians for that matter. He was just a wrecking crew. I didn't want to see him hit against my team. Him and Albert Bell, same thing. Don't let them hit against when it matters,
Definitely one of the greatest right-handed hitters of all time.
Yeah. So that's my ballot, I think.
Yeah.
I think I voted for everyone else.
These are all great picks. Can't argue with any of them. So now we're going to move on to Mr. Missouri. Let's go back to the beginning. And Chris whittled his way down. He had 8, 7, 6, 5. Now he's down to 3.
Well, I kind of feel a little bit outnumbered with you big haul guys, but there's some of these guys on here that eventually I think I would vote for. Your Manny Ramirez's and your Rodriguez, someday they're going to get in, but there's a lot of other guys that's had to wait a long time for that button to push, for that floodgate to open up. And so, the first one I chose was Adrian Beltre. I think he is the only one on here that deserves to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my personal opinion.
Agreed.
I'm a historian for the most part, and I have in the back of my head that It took Joe DiMaggio 4 ballots before he got in. It took Yogi Berra 5 ballots before he got in. It's hard for me. I don't want to be the keeper of the Hall. I don't think the Hall of Fame is watered down either. But every once in a while, we let somebody trickle into the Hall that maybe should not be quite up in front of the line as some of these other players. And so I picked, Adrian Beltre to me is a first-tier Hall of Famer or a first ballot Hall of Famer. And when he was playing, I always thought he was going to be a Hall of Famer. I always thought he was going to be a Hall of Famer.
I mean, look at those numbers. 3,000 hit club, almost got in the 500 home run club, and 1707 RBI. I mean, that's a no-brainer. He's going to right now. I think he was at 98.9%. And some of these guys, and me and Mike have talked about this for years. Whatever you see on the tracker right now, it usually drops on the day of the ballot 5%. Sometimes I've even seen as high as 10, but usually a few percent it does drop. But still, he's going to be way above 90%.
Okay, show the next one I picked up. So
your next one you picked up was the 93 Topps traded Helton.
Yeah, so I agree with Mike. He should not be penalized because he played with the Rockies, for the forever and hitting that little ballpark that the ball jumps out of because he didn't have any choice. But there was a long time there that I did not think Todd Helton would be a Hall of Famer, I always thought he was maybe going to be a borderline Hall of Famer. But if I had to chip this down to a few, I would have. If I had a vote, I would have voted this year for Todd Helton to be in the Hall of Fame. And so the next one is Mauer is the next one of mine.
Yep.
And so Mauer's a unique one for me because I'm a lover of catchers being in the Hall of Fame. And I'm not so sure he would be ranked so high in my eyes if I looked at him as a first baseman only. If he was a catcher only, there'd be no doubt in my mind because of his uniqueness of winning the batting titles and the MVP and stuff. He came in at the right time where there was there was some great catchers, Hall of Fame talk worthy catchers. And I'm talking about Buster Posey, and I'm talking about Yadier Molina, and Pudge Rodriguez, of course, already in, but he came up at a good time, and I think he ranked higher than most of those. And so that's why I put him on my ballot.
Okay, so all 3 good picks there. 6-time All-Star, 3-time batting title, which for a catcher is amazing. 23 hits, 143 homers. And he is tracking right now at 83.6%. So even if he took a dip a little bit, he's getting in. So this brings us now to Chris Hall of Fame Pullers. And let me bring up your ballot here. I just had it. And you got go ahead, Chris, take it away.
That's right. Thank you. I went a little big, not necessarily, small hall, big hall kind of guy necessarily, just whoever I think fits. And I like to look at who's already there, and I like to compare players. And I'm kind of like the other Chris. I'm a big first ballot guy. I think there are just some players that are certainly deserving of first ballot status. And I think Adrian Beltre is definitely deserving of first ballot status. I think he's arguably among the 5 greatest third basemen of all time. I am biased. I'm a Rangers fan, and I know Mike knows this. He's my favorite player of all time. I can't say that he became my favorite player until he went to Texas, but having the opportunity to watch him, my kids got to watch him, and then we were fortunate enough to meet him in person. And my, at the time, 10-year-old had an Adrian Beltre jersey, and he made a beeline for my 10-year-old, gave him about 8 batting practice balls and smiled with him, and it was the greatest. So Beltre for his numbers, it was great. And it definitely hit home. He instantly became my favorite. And but his attitude on the field, he's just what you want in a baseball player. I think whatever city he played in would love him. My second, I have him ranked, but my second, I'm gonna go with the way you got. Actually, the 9th on my ballot is Joe Mauer.
Mhm.
I think he's worthy of the Hall of Fame. I'm not so sure I would put him in on the first ballot. I'm voting for him. I just think that catcher is such a rigorous position. He was so unique. If the Twins needed a hit, he got it. And he didn't display a lot of power, but he had a lot of moxie, had a lot of things that you like about a player. I think being the hometown guy, being from Minnesota, and being a Twin, I think that just kind of added a unique element, made him a special player. But man, he was so skilled. My faults with him are he didn't really have the opportunity to go to the postseason. He didn't have a storied postseason career. So a lot of the guys I look at their postseason. I know baseball only accumulates career stats, but I always look at, like a guy like Fred McGriff, who really had over 500 home runs in the big leagues. There's 496 of them or whatever officially, but the others came in the postseason. And so Mauer didn't quite have the postseason I would like to see, but I think he's deserving, so I voted for him. Todd Helton, out of my 9, would be 8th. I don't hold the fact that he is a Colorado guy. I do hold it against him that he was a Tennessee Vol quarterback. We're an SEC country. But no, he was a tremendous player. In a day when, really loogies, left-handed one-out relief guys would come in all the time to face Helton. He was a tremendous hitter, even off, I thought, left-handed pitching. He had the benefit of having Larry Walker in that lineup with him. And, again, the reason I kind of hold him towards the bottom is he just didn't really – he had a few postseason opportunities. He went to a World Series. But in looking, he batted .211, no home runs in 15 games. And so, to me, he didn't step up in the biggest light. I know he's facing the best pitching and all that stuff at that time, but that's the fault I find in him. But I still think he's worthy of the Hall of Fame, so I put him in the ballot, or on my ballot. Billy Wagner is 7th out of my 9. I'm with Mike. He was just the guy who would come in and lock it down, except for in the postseason. His stats, which I think are really interesting. He had 1,196 strikeouts, 422 saves. Both of those numbers are nearly bested by K-Rod, who's on this ballot and really not getting the same kind of attention as Billy Wagner, which I think is kind of interesting. Basically based on K-Rod's postseason career versus Billy Wagner's. But, Wagner pitched in the postseason. He threw 14 games, through 11 and 2/3 innings, and he actually gave up 13 earned runs and 3 home runs. So he got shelled in the postseason, and it was end of the year. Maybe he was hurt. Who knows? I don't know the reason. But that's kind of the only red flag I have on Wagner. But dominant closer, he's in on my ballot.
Okay.
Gary Sheffield, man, did he not have the best swing? I mean, like in a Hall of Fame of swings, he's up there with Julio Franco, Mickey Tettleton. He was, I think, the most feared hitter. I agree there with Albert Bell even. He would come to the plate. He looked mean, and he would just demolish baseballs. I think he should be in already. I think his association with Bonds and Balco and whatever that one summer he spent, it's been spun a little bit, but I just think he's got the numbers. For me, 500 home runs is a big deal. 9-time All-Star. He should be in. Glove probably hurt his WAR, but next, I'm a big Andrew Jones guy. I think obviously I'm a big defense guy, and he's, for me, right there with Griffey, was just among the best center fielders of all times defensively. The one thing that he didn't get to do, he wasn't on that 95 Braves team that won. So he didn't have a World Series championship. I think a lot of people probably attributed him to the success of those 90s teams. but they never won one with him on that team. But when he did make it to the postseason, if you remember his rookie year, he had that huge, like, 2-home-run game. The Braves didn't end up winning. The Yankees won that 96 series. But, man, he was a beast in the postseason. And I did look. He had 76 games in the postseason, hit 10 home runs, 34 RBI. So to me, that kind of stuff, along with those 10 gold gloves, man, that's a lot. That puts him over the top. That puts him in for me. I understand that there's a domestic issue that he had back in 2012, and that's strange to me that this seems to be rearing its head this year. I've seen so many writers say, I'm not voting for him because of that, yet they voted for him last year. That's a little strange to me, but I'm voting for him. Carlos Beltran, although that's not Beltran, is it? Who's that?
That is Juan Lagara.
Yeah. Beltran, I would have said last year no, because of the whole trash can thing. You know, I think he influenced the World Series, but, you know, he was a great player. Man, he had a stretch run. I might be getting this wrong. I felt like it was for the Mets one year. Maybe they traded for him, and he just put them in the postseason. He was a beast in the postseason. Hit 307, 16 home runs in 65 games in the postseason, that's bringing it to the yard. His numbers are pretty stellar. He was a great player overall, a very good defensive player in my mind and in my memory, and so that's why he garners a vote from me. Alex Rodriguez, I think certainly the best career on this ballot. I mean, those numbers are unbelievable. He did hit over 700 home runs if you include the postseason home runs he hit. I get the dislike for him. I mean, as a Ranger, remember when he traded his way out of Texas? I think Mike knows the story, but I bought a authentic A-Rod jersey to take to spring training with me to hopefully get signed. And like 2 days later, after I got it, he demands a trade and is gone to the Yankees, which at the time was not good for a Rangers fan. So I think there's a lot of people who harbor some ill will. Obviously that just the little stuff in his career, the knocking the ball out of the glove. You know, they had that epic meme with him hitting like a purse or something. But and of course the steroids. He's a guy who I think, like Bonds, had never even been associated with steroids, never taken them. I think he would have been fine and put up very good numbers, Hall of Fame worthy numbers. So based on his moxie, based on his just dominance of that decade, I'm putting him in.
Okay. Yeah, all great picks, Chris. All great picks from everybody. So I'm last. I'm going to pick my ballot. I have pretty much the same as everyone. I'm a big Hall person. I think that the more Hall of Famers walking on this planet, the better it is for the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm not just voting anybody in. It is an exclusive club. It's still 1% of all the players that have played in the history of this game. So I do not think it's watered down at all. So be that as it may, I like to see as many players get in as possible. And I use up my whole 10 players. So my first one is Adrian Beltre, 3,166 hits, 1,707 RBIs. He's the top 5 third baseman of all time, in my opinion. All around great player, great defense, great hitter. So to me, he's going to get well over 90%. Joe Mauer, I got to be honest with you. Last year when I saw that he was going to be on the ballot, I wasn't really in love with Mauer because I felt like he didn't play long enough at the catcher position and the homers were a little low. But it's grown over me that the amount of hits, 2,123 hits, is up there for catchers, 3-time batting title. I knew he would be a Hall of Famer. I just didn't think he'd be in the first ballot, but I would still vote for him compared to everyone else, and I think he was just a great all-around catcher. Todd Helton, 2,500 hits, 300 homers, 316 average, 1,406 RBIs. I'm not punishing a person because of the ballpark they played in. He could rake home or away. So I have no problem with picking Todd Helton. Billy Wagner, this man is 6th all-time in saves. And there's 5 players that are in the Hall of Fame that are ranked lower than him. So it's a shame that this guy has had to wait this long. 422 saves, 2nd all-time for left-handers. Second to John Franco, who's another person that I'm surprised doesn't get any recognition as well. After that, Gary Sheffield. I mean, 500 home runs right off the bat to me gets him in. The steroid thing is an allegation. I do believe he never failed a test ever. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I don't think he ever failed any kind of test. He had a tomahawk chop, like Chris Hall of Fame Pullers were saying. He was one of the hardest hitters. I remember hearing a story, a guy in left field saying that he hit a line drive to him and he thought he was going to get killed. And this was all the way out in left field. So he was just one of the most hardest hitters of all time, 9-time All-Star. He deserves to be in my opinion. I would vote him in. Andrew Jones, the home runs are there. 1,900 hits. I wish he would have got a little bit more than that. One of the greatest defensive center fielders. I do believe that the Hall of Fame writers don't take enough of defense into consideration, of D-WAR and things like that. I think basically 90% of what they look at is a lot of offense. And I understand that, but I do think that they really should consider taking defense a little bit more into consideration. He was a fantastic top 5 defensive center fielder of all time. And that's his rookie card that if he does get in, that'll be represented in the post-war rookie Hall of Fame. Carlos Beltran, 95 tops traded. I'm not going to punish a person for 1 year of his career, and that 1 year happened to be the last year of his career when all the other years were just spectacular. I mean, okay, I'm okay with dinging him for 1 year, but this is year 2 now. Let him in. I'm okay with giving a guy punishment and dinging him for 1 year, and I wasn't expecting him to get in last year, but he has my vote. 2,700 hits. He is an outstanding postseason hitter, one of the best. Plus, he was just a very good, very, very good defensive outfielder that people don't realize. No, Chase Utley was not on my pick. Alex Rodriguez, I am picking. I do think Alex Rodriguez deserves to be in. The difference, I think, between Alex Rodriguez and Manny Ramirez, Manny Ramirez failed quite a few times when it was a rule. A-Rod did admit it. He admitted it to doing it, I think, 1 year in Texas, maybe 2 years in 2003. After that, he's never failed any kind of test. I do believe in giving people a second chance. The reason why I don't vote for Manny is because he failed when it was a rule, and he's failed more than once. If he failed one time, I'm all for giving the guy a second chance. If he passed all the tests afterwards, I do believe Manny Ramirez deserves to be in, but he kept failing and failing and failing. And it's like, dude, bro, you know, it's a rule. You know it's a rule now. That's why I don't hold it against guys like Bonds and Clemens and A-Rod, because at the time when they were suspected of doing it, it wasn't a rule. End of story. If it wasn't a rule, you get in. Even if whether you felt like they did it or not, it wasn't a rule. But for the time Manny Ramirez was doing it, it was a rule. And I would still let him in if he only failed one time, but he failed multiple times. And that's a little hard when you know it's the rule and you continue to fail. It is a little hard to let that go that many times. But A-Rod, one time, he admitted it. One of the greatest players of all time. I have him up there with Barry Bonds as one of the all-around great players of all time. And my last pick is I also have Bobby Abreu. I'm sorry, I got 2 more picks because I picked 10. Bobby Abreu, 2,470 hits, 288 homers, 400 stolen bases, 1,363 RBIs. An all-around great player, good defensively, great arm, had speed, could hit for power. Very underrated, in my opinion. And last but not least, J-Roll, Jimmy Rollins, all-time leader for Phillies hits. He won an MVP. I compare him a lot. I've done comparisons with 2 Hall of Famers at shortstop that's already in, and that's Alan Trammell and Barry Larkin. J-Roll has a lot more better stats in a lot of categories Then Barry Larkin in a couple categories is better than Rollins, but in other categories, Rollins blows him away. They both won an MVP. They're both very similar. Same with him and Alan Trammell. And that's it. Those are my 10 picks. There you have it. So now that we had our ballots in, we've had time to think about it. Now we're going to go around and make our predictions, what we think come Tuesday night on the MLB Network when Brian Kenny comes on. Who do we actually think is going to get announced for the 2024 Hall of Fame? Mike, you're up. Who do you think is going to get actually elected this year? Is Mike frozen?
Is he mute?
Mike, are you muted?
Still photo.
Still photo. Well, we'll go to Chris. Chris from Missouri. I'm sure Mike had a technical difficulty. He'll come back on.
It's hard not to hear him. You know, it's hard for him to be quiet. I think he found a way. So I think the night of, I think the person that's going to be the two people that's going to be talked about the most is not the ones that are going to get in it. I think the two that's going to be talked about the most is A-Rod, and I think they're going to be talking about Carlos Beltran as they're going through. They're going to be talked about more than any of the players on here. But when all is said and done, I believe Adrian Beltre walks away with one of the highest percentages of votes. Because I just think he is, and why would you keep him off your ballot?
Exactly.
And the other one that I think is going to get on there this time, I just think there's only going to be two, and I'm going to stick. I'm going to stick with it, even though I haven't. You just showed me the numbers. I think Todd Helton's getting in, and it's going to be close. But I think he's eke in, and I think Carlos Beltran is going to miss it by just a little bit.
Wow. Okay. Welcome back, Mike. So we were just saying, Mike, now that we've all made our ballot picks, come Tuesday night on the MLB Network, who is Brian Kenny going to announce as being elected this year, in your opinion?
Beltre, no question. In fact, he'll be the first one they mention because that's going to be the easy one. I think we're going to have three guys that squeak in. We're going to have three other guys. So we're going to have a 4-person class. We're going to have Helton, Mauer, and Wagner will all get in with barely over 75%. I think it's going to be razor thin, like a couple of votes, literally. But I think they both that's going to be your class. 4 people will be the new class.
Yeah. All right. Chris, Hall of Fame pullers. What is your prediction?
The interesting thing this year is the number of people who have, because of the introductions of Beltre and the introduction of Mauer, who have squeezed some people off their 10-person ballot. And I've been kind of surprised that Helton's been squeezed off at least 5 ballots right so far. Writers who said, I voted for him last year, but because of Beltre, because of Mauer, he's slid down. And so, I worry about that for Helton a little bit. He's picked up 5 votes, so I think he's even with the trend that's come in. But I'm worried he's just going to miss it again, which, there's 2 surefire first ballot Hall of Famers in Ichiro and Sabathia coming on next year.
Good point.
So I worry a little bit for Helton. I think Beltre makes it, and I don't want to be the negative Nancy. I think that Helton and Mauer just miss it. And I see the steam that Beltran has. I mean, he's picked up, 16, 17 votes from last year. I think those are people who kind of punished him for his involvement in the scandal. I see the momentum for him getting in. But I think it's Beltre's night, and then Beltre and Leland come next August.
So one player?
Just one, I think. Okay. I hope I'm wrong, but
All right. Well, my prediction is I agree with Mike. I'm going to go with 4 players. I originally was going to say 3, but I think it's going to be 4, and that's rare because they usually don't vote that many players each year. It's usually 1, 2. Although I think a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, we did have 4 in one year, but that might have been a combination of both the veterans and the BBWAA. So I can't remember off the top. So my 4, I'm going to absolutely go with Beltray. I'm going with Maurer, and I'm going with Helton and Wagner. Of those 4, if I had to pick, I think one might not get in would be Joe Maurer. I think he would be just slightly under 75%. But I'm going to say he's at high enough right now where it's not going to drop enough. Right now, he's at 83.6, and so is Todd Helton, 83.1.
Mine would be Wagner not getting in of my 4.
Okay. So yeah, those I wouldn't be surprised if it's 3, but I do think it's going to be above average what the normal's been. Past few years, it's only been 1 or maybe 2. I think it's going to be a big room this year, which is good.
Well, it's good for us because I was very disappointed with the results of the ERA committee when they came out. Just having Leland, I thought there were, quite frankly, 3 or 4 better deserving candidates than Jim Leland on that ballot, and Leland's the only one that gets in. So I'd quite frankly be very disappointed if we only Beltray's getting in. Everybody else, I mean, we all know that. That's not even a question. I think he could literally not get another vote and still get, he's got that big of a head start. So Beltray's getting in. If no one else gets in, I'm gonna be disappointed. It's like, what are we doing here? Why are we not recognizing these players? It doesn't make any sense.
Right.
The ERA committee that disappointed me as well. And throughout history of this, it kind of depends on who the players are that's doing the voting. Where are they from? Years ago, there was a conspiracy that some of the older guys got in, because of their ties, I believe, with Detroit or somebody. But I thought there was, I thought that there was with Minnesota a couple of years ago, with Cotton Minosa. I mean, it kind of depends, and it's frustrating when you hear that that some of the people that are voting, just got there and just picked up their stuff and didn't do a lot of research. I mean, Burt Blyleven was quoted as saying, and I'm not trying to put him down, but he was quoted as saying, "Oh, I didn't even know that guy was that good." And I mean, why are you on that committee then? If you, I'm just, that's my
opinion. Chris, the situation you're talking about, because I just read it in the book a couple years ago, was back in the 50s with the Veterans Committee. It was 2 former players, Bill Terry, who played for the Giants, and Frankie Frisch, who played for the Cardinals. And there was cronyism going on where they were picking good old boys, players they played with on the Cardinals and Giants. And if you look at some of those players, how they got in is unbelievable. I mean, not even 2,000 hits. It's awful. It's really, really bad. So yeah, I could see that with the Veterans Committee. Dick
Ray,
Allen comes to mind.
I'll give you $10 if you can spell cronyism.
CR. Hold on, let me look at my phone.
No.
Come on.
No, keep going. I'm sorry.
Okay, it's all right. It's been rumored about Dick Allen as well. He's been twice come up 1 vote short, and there's been a lot of stories out there about who's the guy from the White Sox that is the owner of Reinsdorf or something like that. Jerry Reinsdorf is in charge. Who's like a head of the committee and might have had some influence on there. I don't know. I don't have any proof of that at all whatsoever. But yeah, there's been some in the history of that Veterans Committee. Has been a little bit of shadiness going on there. So, we'll see. But I was disappointed at that ballot a month ago too. I thought it was going to be 3. I mean, I had Bill White and Lou Piniella along with Jim Leyland in there. I really, really thought those guys, especially Bill White. I mean, come on.
I thought
Well,
the
I was just going to say, with respect to this ballot, because we're dealing with writers, and I don't know if you gentlemen have been following along with Tibbs's tracker, but he'll post, the stories, and so I've been reading from writers, and what's really frustrating, and we all change our minds. You're entitled to it. So many of these writers who last year voted for somebody, and this year inexplicably left them off their ballot. Someone who didn't vote for 10. I get it if you voted for 10 last year and you've got 2 good quality candidates who've been added and you got to bump a couple. I get that. I've just been perplexed by some of the stories this year of people who have I just changed my mind. And we all get to do that, but man, some of those mind changes are important for guys like Todd Helton and Billy Wagner,
Yeah. Croynism, CRONYISM. The appointment of friends and associates to positions of authority. There you go.
Wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
I'm using cronyism to get Chris Hall of Fame Pullers on this panel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. The BBWAA, I mean, what do you guys think do you think they do it right? Do you think it should be the writers voting for this? I always wondered if they're the ones that really should be the ones doing it, especially when there's guys that played, like in the Bonds era, and these a lot of new young guys under 30 years old, maybe, that never saw these guys play.
How else would you do it? And
I don't know.
That's the other problem is
let the 4 of us handle it. I thought we did a pretty good job tonight.
we just elected Beltre, Maurer, and
Wagner.
Yeah.
No.
Or whoever Chris picked.
Helton. That's 3. That's a good class.
It's a very good
Yeah,
class.
but there was a few of them. There was a few of them that you 3 had them all.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's more than just 3 of them getting in, according to us.
Good point.
Because some of you guys, just
we
because
would have all voted Wagner. Did we all vote A-Rod?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He gets in on our 4-person ballot.
The one I'm a little shocked at looking at Tibbs's tracker is that Wagner's doing better than Sheffield when this is Sheffield's 10th year, and Wagner, this is his 9th year. So Wagner has another year.
Well,
I think Wagner gets in next year.
And Sheffield, remember, he was only 55% last year. So he's actually seeing quite a bit of that last year final gasp people voting for him. I mean, it's hard to go from 55 to 75. That's a big jump.
A big jump, yeah.
Now, you're Rafael Palmeiro. What are you looking at on Sheffield being on the docket and how he's done in 10 years when Palmeiro was put out after the first year, 500 home runs, 3,000 hits? And I understand the substance abuse issue, but that still surprises me.
Yeah, that's a whole.
Were they put on a ballot at the same time?
No, Palmeiro was out before Sheffield.
Yeah, so it was still more glaring than when Palmeiro got on there, and I could have been a campaign manager to not get him on, and all you have to do is show us clip of the hearing, and that keeps him off. And just playing it over and over. And the thing that always was curious to me was Curt Schilling, and the baseball writers hold a lot of power on this vote. I mean, they sure do when it comes there. But it got so bad with Curt Schilling, I wouldn't have voted for him, because I'm not going to listen to somebody tell me how stupid I am and over and over from a guy and expect me to vote for it. I couldn't find it. I'd find every reason I could not to vote for somebody like that. He's going to get in someday because different people are going to be in charge of his fate instead of the baseball writers.
Well, he didn't make it last year in his first year on the
veterans, and I really thought he would, because it was his peers. Now, I thought, all right, I can understand the writers not voting for him. Once he gets on the veterans ballot with his peers, I thought he would definitely have a better shot, and that spoke volumes to me. I was like blown away at that.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I think is really interesting, and we just talked about all these guys, Did y'all realize that we did not? None of us even picked a starting pitcher. You know, we picked all these guys who hit 500 home runs, and this was a tough couple of decades to pitch in. And it's going to be interesting to see because, you know, CC is going to hit the ballot next year, and I think he's a first ballot. And then after that, you got Cole Hamels and John Lester until, you know, the Verlander, Greinke, Scherzer guys eventually retire and come in. But it's pretty interesting to me. It's what we're going to see with the future of, you know, baseball writers, because I don't, you know, Pettit has a fantastic, other than the substance abuse issue or performance enhancing issue, has a tremendous postseason career, 5-time world champion, but none of us even really mentioned him. Right. It's just, you know, I wonder how starting pitchers are going to be viewed.
I just did a video on something like that, the future of starting pitchers going into the Hall of Fame, all because the game is different now and it's changed. You're not going to see 300-game winners anymore. What are they going to look at? I mean, the last wave, okay, you have Verlander, Scherzer, Kershaw, and Greinke. Then after that, you know, I mean, I don't even 200 wins now is like, what are they going to be looking at? WAR, you know, the strikeouts, I think is the 3,000 strikeouts. I still believe is still going to be in there. Matter of fact, I think that's going to be more pitchers because of hitters striking out more.
It's
like crazy.
It's becoming less and less though, because I think CC is only the third left-handed pitcher of all time with 3,000 strikeouts.
Right. Randy Johnson, Steve Carlton, and CC.
That video you did, Ray, I was sitting there screaming into the television as I was watching it. I was thinking, like, tons of it made a lot of sense. We went through the dead ball era in the early 1900s. Now we're in the dead arm era. And that
true, very true.
There's just no longevity to these guys. It's hard to, you know, if you're pulled in the sixth inning, and a lot of games are decided in that last third of the game, and therefore they're not getting the decision, right?
Right.
I mean, I can remember Felix Hernandez, DeGrom, both won Cy Youngs with losing records, if I remember right. I know Felix did, and I think DeGrom did too.
Greinke won a Cy Young with the Royals, and I don't know if he won 10 games.
Yeah, I mean, Jacob deGrom won a Cy Young with like 10 wins. Yeah, I couldn't believe that. I was like, what's going on here? The game is different. The game has changed. Pitchers aren't asked to go 250 to 300 innings. They're getting pulled not even at 100 pitches. You remember it used to be 100 pitch clock. Now it's like 80, you know, and they're getting pulled in the 5th and 6th inning. They're not given a chance to win the game. So the game is different. So I don't know where the future of starting pitchers. I mean, to me, you can't eliminate them. It's not their fault that the game has changed. It's not all of a sudden that pitchers are sucked now. It's just the game is different, and I don't think they're given the opportunity to win games. They're not given the opportunity to pitch through jams and get out of jams. I don't know.
You know, the going through the third time in the order, they just turn it over to the bullpen now. And
they don't want them to face the batters a third time. They'd rather see a different arm, which I get that. But to me, the only way that starting pitcher is going to get better is to pitch. Yeah. You know, they're worried about their arms.
We're already seeing every once in a while that a guy comes in and starts and they're only expecting him to go an inning or two.
Right.
And you know, maybe there'll be we'll be talking about guys with the hold records. You know, the guy that comes in the 7th inning or the 8th inning. Oh, he's
quality starts.
Holder of all time, and you know, just you know. Yeah.
30 years from now, someone's going to be making a video with like the four of us talking about how many quality starts he has.
That's what I mean. Like it's funny, but it's not funny. Like that's just where we're headed with starting pitch. That's the only position I think out of any other position on the field that's really going to get affected for the future of the Hall of Fame or starting pitchers. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what they're going to be looking at.
By the way, DeGrom actually had 2 seasons where he won the Cy Young. He was 11-8 and 10-9, so he wasn't under 500, but not exactly. You know, he had 11 wins and 10 wins, and he wins the Cy Young both of those years.
Look up Greinke. Look up Greinke real quick because I
He
know
was 16-8 during his Cy Young season.
That's awesome today.
Oh, I thought he won Cy Young with a losing record
He's only won one, so
for the Royals. He won one with the Royals.
I bet the team had a losing record.
oh, and neither did Felix. Felix was 13-12. I apologize to Felix Hernandez. He was 13-12 during his Cy Young season.
Yeah,
So-
it's going to be, like I said, we have this is the last wave, I think, with Verlander. And Verlander actually is the only one, I think, that actually has a slight shot at getting 300 wins. He has 257. Yes, he's 40 years old, but if he pitches like Nolan Ryan until he's 45, that's 5 more years if he does. That's like less than 10 wins a year. All of a sudden, he gets 300 wins. But if he does, I think that's the last pitcher we're going to see in a long time get the 300 wins, unless Kershaw.
I would tell
stays
everybody,
healthy.
enjoy this year, enjoy maybe next. You have 5 guys that are pitching right now in the majors that are
Yep.
absolute Hall of Famers: Greinke, Verlander, Scherzer,
Yep.
Kershaw, and who else am I missing?
Verlander, Scherzer, Greinke, and Kershaw.
There's 5, right?
That's
I don't know, but
But
enjoy
yeah,
that because
it's a good point.
after that, maybe DeGrom if he does anything. Garrett Cole's on a good track, right? But he's not going to have the milestone numbers that we're used to with pitchers, right?
Nobody is.
So hitters wise, I think, there's a lot of good. Soto, Acuna, Ohtani. It's a pretty great time. Judge, maybe. He's got an outside shot. Goldschmidt, Freeman, Betts.
Arenado.
I mean, you can name a lot of hitters that we think are really on track. Harper. We didn't even say Harper. Trout, obviously.
Seager.
Yeah, I mean, there's just see how much longer that conversation is versus the pitchers.
Yeah, there's not much change with the hitters, especially with milestones. 500 home run club, I think that's going to be still pretty easy because of the launch angle and players trying for more homers anyway. The one category, though, which I saw on MLB Network last year, is the 3,000 hit club. It's Miggy was the last one to reach that, and I looked at the current players. It could be a little while on the 3,000 hit club.
Altuve will get there.
I think so. I absolutely agree with that.
I think he's the next guy to get there.
And the other one I saw was Machado, who's only 30 years old. So
but he's got Altuve will beat him there because
easily, yeah. I totally agree. Altuve will totally beat Machado by a couple of years.
I think Altuve will be 36 this season or something like that.
I don't think he's that old.
33 right now.
33, okay. I got to get going. So
all right, well,
right.
I appreciate you guys coming on. Let us know, everybody watching out there, who your predictions are for this year's 2024 Baseball Hall of Fame election. Stay tuned. Watch that Tuesday night. Enjoy it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mike, for coming on. I appreciate it, guys. And like I always say, have fun with it, guys. See you real soon.